All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Beast Report. I am your host, Scott Biskobing, and I apologize, folks. Hopefully, I can see at least 20 of you guys have found the other broadcast here. I don't know if the system is just bogged down. It said it was allocating resources, so we had to forego the link and restart a new broadcast, which is always unfortunate because it kind of confuses everybody and they have to hop off and then come find this one here. So I think this is only like the second time it's happened. So knock on wood that it won't happen too often. But again, welcome everybody. And we are joined here tonight by the Hunting Beast himself, as always, Mr. Dan Anfault. What's up, Dan?
Not much. How's it going?
Be better if that first broadcast would have went through as scheduled. I don't know. That's
Anybody show up?
Yeah, we got people showing up.
It looks like Zeke's out there. I can see Zeke.
Yep. Just, I'm playing around with a new comment section here so I can better see everybody's comments here as well. So I'm using a whole extra screen here. So if my head turns off to the side here, that's just because I'm looking at your comments and questions here tonight. Playing around here a little bit. So we'll just give it a second here while we have some folks rolling in from the other broadcast. I did mention over there that we had a little bit of an issue and to look for the new broadcast. And everybody seems to be slowly moving on over here to this one. And we appreciate your patience with that. With that said, I just wanted to quick bring this up here because, Dan, you and I just, or I shouldn't say you and I was there for your first two workshops of the season, this last Saturday and Sunday, but you have two more coming up, not this weekend, but the weekend after, Saturday, February 21st and Sunday, February 22nd. And there are still a few spots available. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you reach out to Dan and get yourself signed up. It was a lot of fun. Weather was really cold, but you wouldn't know it because we moved around a lot, and the marsh was solid. Dan was the only one that broke through the ice at all in the swamp just one time on Saturday.
I was showing everybody what not to do.
Right, exactly. But, yeah, we had a lot of fun and a lot of great information. Everybody that showed up had great questions and comments and a really positive experience from everything I saw. Would you agree, Dan?
Yeah, it was a good time.
So, yeah, and that just kind of goes along with the fact that we've been talking so much about scouting the last couple episodes, but we thought we'd change it up a little bit here tonight. And we're going to go ahead and bring our guest on, and that's Mr. Rendell Erik. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to do your top 5 favorite hunts.
Yeah.
And I'm certain you've seen a few of the other episodes in the past, and it's been quite popular with most everybody. Let me just quickly ask you a question before we start getting into it. What does your scouting typically look like in a year's span? Do you do a lot of postseason? Do you do a lot of in-season, early season? What kind of scouting does Rendell Erik typically partake in?
A ton of postseason, as much as I can. I think that's the most vital scouting you can do. I do a little bit of summer scouting, but it's mostly like glassing, checking secondary food sources, crops, just so I can kind of get an idea how stuff is going to change for the fall. And then in-season scouting, it varies because I don't know what I'm doing. Sometimes I'm like out of state, in state. Sometimes I'm over aggressive, not aggressive enough. So I tend to rely more on the postseason than I do in season, just because I think you get way more intel of the woods postseason. I can just go in there and blow it up, scout it out, find food, beds, transitions, whatever I want to find, and then go on to the next, and I don't have any worries. End season, you always risk letting the buck know that you're on to them and stuff, but it just depends on the situation, honestly.
Sure. I'm just going to go ahead and bring this question up here real quick for you. Can you give a brief history? He said Randall, and then he said Rendell. Sorry. Can you give us a little backstory for those beast followers that aren't familiar with you? I know most of them are. We've been getting a lot of comments, and that people are excited to have you on the show here tonight. But for those that don't, can you give us a little history, your back history, and how you get into hunting?
So I'm originally from the South. My dad was a Marine. Yeah, he mostly was a fisherman. Wasn't really around anybody that really hunted that much growing up. Taught myself how to hunt pretty much. Probably got into it late teens, early 20s. Um, they always had like the DVDs at Walmart, like The Truth About Hunting. I really got into that, and that kind of set me off on my journey of bow hunting. I hunted mostly public land out of necessity, just because I don't have a lot of money and you can just go. I'm more of an adventure type guy. So I spent a lot of time just in the woods learning as much as I could, like basically on my own, which is pretty tough, honestly. Like the more I think about it, the older I get, I'm like, man, that was a tall task. And I jumped right into bow hunting. Never really gun hunted much, just straight into the archery. I'm, and then I wanted to hunt big bucks. So I was like, well, how do you learn about maturity? Or well, you gotta live where they live. So I moved to Iowa on a spur. Never even been here. Didn't know anybody. Just showed up. I lived in a tent for like 6 months, and I lived in like a falling apart fifth wheel camper thing for another 6 months, and then been on my way since. Just hunting as much as I can. Like I'm just ate up with it.
Sure. Awesome.
I
Hopefully
love
that.
that tent and camper story. I just, you got what it takes. You got the want.
Yeah, man, I do some crazy stuff.
All for the love of the hunt, right?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. There's worse things that I could be into.
All right. Well, I don't want to waste any more time. I really want to get into these bucks here because I know these are going to be good stories. I know, like we talk about it as a top five, or we have previously, but we kind of switch it to more favorite hunts. So it's not necessarily your five biggest bucks, but it's the stories that go behind it and maybe the tactics that kind of relate to some of the beast style hunting, public land hunting, those kinds of things. So you were very diligent and wanting to pick the right ones, and I'm excited to get into them here. So you ranked them here, number five being not the top one, number one being the top one. So we're going from 5 to 1 in this series here. So let's go ahead if you're ready, Rendell. Let's pull up buck number 5.
So I haven't really talked about this buck ever, honestly. It's unique to me, and I picked it. It's not the biggest, but I always think about it because I don't. I've never really hunted with anybody. Like I'm kind of a loner and don't have a lot of friends around the area, so I've never really had a chance to hunt with people, especially like at the same piece. So I picked this buck because um, I hunted with my buddy. There's super overlooked chunk of ground. There was like two little wood lots, and I mean maybe half an acre each, and they bumped right up to a road. And across the road there was private, and it was just a big wood lot on the private side. And the deer would come across because they didn't have any food. The ag was on the side with the two little wood lots, so I was hunted it off and on because you're pretty much relying on weather or luck at that point because you can't really go hunt the deer down because you can't get into their bedding area because they're just coming across to feed. And it was the second to last day, I think, early archery. before shotgun season comes in, and we decided to go hunt together at the same time. He was going to go right, and I was going to go left. And then instead of sticking to the edge, I pushed into the woodlot a little bit on my side, and he stayed to the edge on his side. And I was down in like a bowl, so like all the thermals and everything would dump down in this bowl. And I noticed that they would come across the road, but they wouldn't cut the edge on the bottom side like they would the high side. They would come into the woodlot on that bowl, probably to catch the thermals. So I moved down in there a little bit to try to keep them and keep them from getting behind me. And then he just went right on the edge on the other side, and just sitting there and set up. And I actually was just looking across the field, and then I heard something, and I just looked down, and here comes that buck. And he literally, right before he went by the tree, he turned and came up to the right side of me, so he didn't get behind me where my thermals were probably dumping to. And I had a good wind. My wind was blowing away from the road out into the open field. And then I waylaid that buck. I mean, he was right underneath me. Pretty much shot him right down through the top of the back almost. And he runs off, and I was like, "That's cool." And my buddy was up there still, so I was like, "Oh, I don't want to get down. Don't want to say anything." And I thought that he knew that I shot a buck, but he ended up not even knowing I shot the buck. But later on, I was watching him, and then I seen a buck come across on the high side and was headed towards him. And then I watched him shoot his buck, so we doubled up on bucks, and I was super pumped because we doubled up. But it was funny because he didn't know I shot one, but I knew that he shot his. Like I actually watched him shoot it, so I that's why I picked this buck. It was just different, unique. Like I don't really hunt like that, and there wasn't like a grand story to it. That's why I'd always think about it because that was just really cool. Like tactic wise, it was a little bit, but I didn't really have any room to move around, and I didn't have top notch mobile gear then either. I was carrying like a 30-40 pound Walmart tree stand with some metal tree step strapped to it with a ratchet strap. I mean, heavier than a Dickens. And I got like a duffel bag strap, and I carry it over my shoulder. And then you're like tripping and falling because your one side weighs so much. And then sometimes I'd carry it in my hand, and your arm would about fall off. You know, you'd have to switch arms, and you're worried about, man, can I even draw on a buck now because your arm's smoked by the time you get to the tree? And then everything's loud, and it's crazy some of the stuff I got away with using some of that gear that I used to use.
Did you have a trail camera there, or did you see this buck before, or was that the first time you seen it?
Yeah, first time, no trail cameras, just went in there and hunted off, just hunted there. I didn't used to run a lot of cameras at all. I just couldn't afford them. I had like 3 SD card cameras, and that was about it.
So at that time frame, were you hunting mobile with that heavy stand?
Yeah, I would walk forever with that thing. It was probably like 40 pounds, I bet.
What were you using to climb the tree?
Just iron climbing sticks. They were like, the old ladder looking ones.
I laugh, but I've been there. You know,
Oh yeah, I mean, I would use anything back in the day. I mean,
my
we
my first stand was like a 25 pound hunk of steel, and back then they didn't have straps; they had chains. So I took a hose and put it over the chain for a section of it so that it wouldn't make noise. And I had screw steps that I had taped everything except for the threads to use to climb with.
dang. We did try to put a ladder stand in there, but when he was up on top and I was holding it, the ladder snapped in half, and the whole ladder stand and him fell down on top of me and about killed me. So we drug that out and abandoned the ladder stand idea, and we're like, okay, I'll just carry this heavy setup in here whenever like we want to hunt in here. So it's just kind of crazy. Like some of the stuff is awesome. Like I actually think that time is so fun sometimes. Like I think back on it and was like, oh man, I can't believe I used to do that. Because I'll be walking through the woods now with like 20 pounds, and I might piss and moan sometimes about it. Then I just think about that tree stand and 40 pounds, and I'm like, all right, I'm good.
How high up were you hunting?
Oh, that's probably like 12 foot, I think.
For those that don't know that are watching, Rendell is a giant dude. He makes me
Yeah.
look tiny standing next to me,
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
was gonna say,
six.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining him trying to hide 12 feet up a tree.
Yeah, half the time I just set the stand platform or whatever off the ground. I don't even climb on the sticks to hang it. I
How
just
tall
reach
are
up.
you?
I'm 6'8".
Yeah, you're a huge dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you could be a small forward in the NBA
Oh yeah.
easily.
If I could jump higher, yeah.
You're 2 inches taller than Michael Jordan was.
Yeah, yeah. He can jump
So
way higher than I can.
yeah, to put it in perspective. So
I
That's
used to
good
be
stuff
able to.
though, because it tells the young people that are watching that don't have the money that they can still get out there and do it.
mhm.
It's just a little bit more work, a little harder. I mean, me and you both started out that way,
Yep.
and eventually, as time came along, we got the money to get the proper gear or whatever. But you don't have to have it.
I think it actually makes you a better hunter when you kind of struggle when you first start out and you got to do things the really hard way, and it takes grit and dedication, and you got to figure stuff out too. You got to make stuff do and be creative with setups and gear. But the good thing about mobile is it used to be the thing where you'd go and buy 30 tree stands and you're like, oh, I can never afford that. But now you only need, my advice would be go get the best stand or saddle platform you can afford and some sticks, and that's all you need. You just need one setup. And I would put all my money into that and just go hunt and have fun and not worry about having 80,000 pieces of other gear to mess around with.
Yeah, you hit on something nice there. The whole struggle thing, like how you said that's a good thing. I think that's everything in life.
Yeah.
The more you struggle, the more you appreciate everything you got. And I think that struggling's for a reason. And
Yeah, I
I
agree.
think my childhood of not having any money and really having it hard, I think made me a better person. Honestly,
Yeah.
I think you see a lot of people that grow up rich and they're just horrible people. Not always, I'm not
Yeah.
knocking people, but I'm just saying that I
Mhm.
think sometimes it puts you in perspective. You have a little more compassion for other people and stuff when you grew up like that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, and I think sometimes you're just a lot more grateful for what you do have, and it might not even be that much, but you remember back to what it's like not having a damn thing, and then you got a little bit of stuff, and that gives you like a sense of pride too, a little bit. And then it's always interesting, just people and personalities and things like that, how people evolve and or don't evolve.
I agree. All right, should we move on to buck number 4?
Yeah, that's all I had for that one. It was just a short. It was just a cool little thing. That's why I tossed it in there. I never really talked about it, so I like that. People don't really know about that buck.
Yeah, no, that's great. And yep, this is the what did you label this one? The
And I want Tethered has a contest, a Tethered 10. I won that contest with this buck.
okay.
So I called it the 10. I got like a medallion on it for cool. This buck
This is a beautiful buck.
is it's
Oh,
kind of crazy because I was hunting a bigger deer than this. I was on a 200-inch buck, so that 200-inch buck kicked my ass. I had that 200-inch buck in this spot like twice within like I would say like 60 to 70 yards probably, and just did some dumb stuff. The first time I really screwed it up, like it was not good. Overlooked just a tiny property, hardly any cover, no bedding, just old fence lines, like old growed up over cattle fence lines, but they all hooked to a creek, and there's some woodlots down the way. And then on the north side of this piece, there's two draws on the private side that butt up to a road, and they run down to about 40 yards from the fence line on the piece that I was on. And it was pretty overgrown in there. So this 200-inch buck would live in the one drain all the time. on a north wind. I just noticed on a north wind, he was always in there, and he'd come out and he'd drop down, and there's a little gap in the old barbed wire fence, and he'd cut through this little gap. The problem was there was really no trees to get in. Like the tree selection was god awful. And then you're in a wide open field, so it's like access issues trying to get in there. Um, so the first time, I literally just walked through the freaking field, like just right out in the open. There was corn in there, but it just got cut. And I didn't even, I seen this buck first in person, and then I put a camera in there. But the camera never really helped me out. I could never get this deer on camera and couldn't figure out what the deal was. And one day I sat on the road. This was after the first encounter when I figured out he was in there. I sat out on the road and he was looping around the camera like he knew the freaking camera was there.
Yep.
So I was never getting him on the camera, but he was just cutting through a different part of the fence then. So I was like, all right. But back to the story. Sorry, I kind of got it mixed up out of order, but I picked this one tree you could get, I don't know, 10 foot up in, million branches, just god awful tree. And you weren't able to set up the right way. So I was kind of facing a different direction using a tree stand the first time. And then I seen him, and it just didn't work out that time for me because he's in the wide open, and I ain't gonna lie. I started grunting and rattling at him because I thought he was going to leave down the fence line the other way. And I mean, there's no cover anywhere. So he just literally just turns and looks down at me. And he's just looking down there and doesn't see a buck. And I'm like, I'm toast. Like, I instantly knew that I was dumb. I kind of panicked on a deer that big. Like, I've never seen a deer in person that big yet. So to me, it just blew. Like, I don't even know how to describe seeing a deer that big in person. The size of this thing was insane. But so I screwed the pooch on that, and then I was like, all right, well, I got to figure it out. I need a better way to get this figured out. So about the time the saddle thing was booming, so I was like, all right, I got all the saddle stuff, and I went in there, and I'm like, I'm going to hunt that tree, but with saddle stuff this time. And this time, instead of going through the open field, I went down through the creek full of water. I didn't have any waders. I just walked through the water cold, like just with my pants and stuff, pouring water out of my boots when I crawled up into the field. Crawled across the field, set the saddle stuff up, and then just waited. And then I called then because I was like, all right, it's north wind. He's got to be in there. I called. He came out, and then he looped around and cut. He cut through the fence further down, and then he started coming my way. And then a little buck was there with him, and a doe came out. So that big buck, you know how they kind of tend to push off the little bucks when there's a doe around.
Yeah.
Big buck, that 200 was really minute movement, like really slow. It took forever to move, like 5 yards. He'd just stare forever, walk a couple feet, but he's right tight on the fence. And I got my wind. The north wind's blowing right in the field that both the buck and the doe are in now. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to shoot him before he gets to me because he's gonna catch my wind. And I notice a lot of times those big bucks they don't really come out unless they have the wind. So you're like giving them the wind. So it's gonna be feast or famine usually on something like that. So he's coming down. He's gonna come by me in 5 yards. I'm already like I'm pumped. I'm gonna kill this deer. But what happened? That little buck got bumped off and went into the middle of the field, and he sped up. The little buck was moving way faster, and that little buck came all the way down, and he hit my wind first. He sped up so fast and got ahead of that big buck. And that little buck just blew out of there 100 mile an hour. That big deer didn't even care. Like, didn't even see what the little deer was blowing at. He literally just pinwheeled out of there 100 miles an hour and just like out of my life forever. So, but I had it that setup worked. So there was a northeast wind, which we don't get a lot of east winds here or any kind of easterly direction back in that time. Now we seem to get a lot more, but then we didn't. So we just got that east wind. So I'm like, all right, I got more confidence now a little bit that if a deer comes past me, I'll have more of a window to shoot. But instead of that 200 showing back up, this tethered 10 buck that I call, he came out with a doe. It was like late November then. And I did the same thing. I came through the creek. I crawled up, got in the same tree, and the saddle allowed me to. I'm left handed too, so now I can face the gaps and I got a, power shot. I don't have to move around or twist or turn or anything in the saddle. And that buck came out of that same bedding that 200 comes out of. Real slow, monotonous again, like that other buck, just watching that doe. Then he came down and he looped out and he turned in about that same spot where the 200 came through the last time. And then they both came down the fence line really tight to me. Then he kind of, there's like a little ditch and he kind of turned out a little bit, probably 20 yards. And then the doe got ahead of him, which is normal because he's moving slow, kind of pushing her. But she got right next to me, and I was like, I got nervous because of the wind, so I'm like, it's now or never. So I shot through. I don't even know. It's probably a hole like that in the tree, and there's a million branches. But I shot through that, and I made a good shot. I was like, man, I just throttled him, but he did. At that time of year, there's zombies. They're on the doe, and they're zombie.
Yeah.
This buck's probably like he was over 300 live weight. I mean, the deer's just massive. So he just keeps walking, and he just kind of goes out after I shoot him, and he kind of turns out and gets like 50 yards or 55 around there, and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna shoot him again. So I shot him again at like 55, and then he just kept on walking. Like I hit him twice, and the deer just keeps walking in zombie mode and out of my life, and he actually went almost a mile. Like when I recovered him, it was almost a mile away down it. He dropped into that creek that I used to access, and he followed that creek for like almost a mile when I found him. It's insane.
Where were the hits?
Terrible.
The first hit was a liver hit. I mean, he bled like crazy, and the other hit I hit like upper like no man's land up towards the spine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the second shot probably wasn't good. It was more like a rush panic thing. Like,
Well, you got one
um,
hit. You can't wound a wounded deer. I take long shots at them too.
yeah.
That's a good
I mean,
point.
the first shot got him done. It just took him a long time to die. When they're in that zombie mode like that, I mean, I think you could hit them with a semi truck and they'd get back up and walk sometimes.
Yeah.
So how are you picking these spots? When you look at the public land, how are you picking a spot like that? Um, I noticed a trend with the first two bucks that they're small overlooked properties. How are you picking a property to hunt?
Yeah, I tend to pick the small overlooked, and I'll probably scout 50 properties or so, maybe a year, like every postseason. I'll go in and look for old sign. I use the glassing in the summer, I'll do it all, run cameras just to figure out something. I like to have at least 10 to 12 bucks located because like we talked about before we got on here, like it's okay if I'm hunting it, but if another guy shows up to hunt the small property, that kind of messes me up or pushes the deer off. So I need a lot of properties to cycle through, and you got different winds and things. And a lot of times I just pick places by gut feeling. Like I just have a intuition or an instinct about it. Spending all that time in the woods, like I like diversity when there's multiple types of plants, terrain sources, creeks, like any kind of things that set up. And a big buck doesn't need a lot to bed in to live. I mean, he's going to feel safe in there, and they almost like lock in there more. Some will like play that game. Others you can push out, but some deer actually get hard headed, and they're like, I've lived here for 6 years, and they feel safe there, and they'll just lock in, and I like the ones that'll play the game with you. I mean, because I think they're a little easier to kill than the ones you just push off really easy.
Yeah. So
And
I
then
noticed down there that like the properties that look like really great hunting properties, they just got overhunted. But
yeah,
it just seemed like the stuff that was like kind of open but had a little bit of cover or stuff is where I usually found the bigger stuff.
yeah,
Where
I agree.
people wouldn't
That's
look at.
how every year I usually find my bigger deer in places like that. They're a lot harder to hunt too, so I think if a guy does hunt it, the deer wins or they get intimidated by it because it is really hard to access a lot of this stuff. And I primarily hunt in the evenings, which makes it a little more challenging because you're trying to access these places in daylight. But I find in Iowa in the mornings is really hard because you're walking through all the food and all the deer are out. And I tend to just blow way more deer out when I hunt in the morning. So I like the evening sit better. I just try to get creative on how to get into places. And sometimes I do I just walk across the field and just get in. Like sometimes you just run across or do something a little different. Like the buck I'll talk about later that I got this past year. I just did something a little different than everybody else, and that put me in the game. And it like you've talked about before, creative act, like come in a different way. Like I'll watch to see where everybody's going in, like you talk about, then I'll go a totally different way. I'll circle around. I'll walk down the road a mile, then jump in. I mean, you got e-bikes now. You could ride a e-bike down the road and hop in somewhere, have somebody drop you off. I've done that before. Like water access, I got a little boat that I use a lot that I'll get into places by water. Like there's just you just got to get really creative on some of these pieces.
What is your what does it look like for you? How close are you getting into the bedding areas?
I like to be about 100 yards or less than a bed if I know it's there and I think it's a mature buck bed. And there's sometimes you can tell, sometimes you can't. Like there's signs like if they'll be bedded down into the dirt and it'll kind of be off on its own. Like he's like your grandpa in his basement, you know. He doesn't want to be messed with. He's off in some piece, and sometimes it's a spot where you'll get it, you know, like Dan does. I'll get in the bed and I'll look around and I'll be like, if you're like, damn, how the heck would I ever kill this deer? Like it's almost bulletproof. It's usually a mature buck then, or if it's in a off the side piece, like you're just bumping around and you're like, well, I would never hunt over there, and you just go check it out, and then there's sign and a bed in there. You're like, all right, this is probably a really good deer because ain't nobody messing with this. They're not pressure there,
Right.
and then or glassing, I'll see them stand up.
You got to hunt the grandpa in the basement. Kind of
Yeah,
sounds like a
exactly.
girl technique.
Yeah.
Got a new one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, can we? You want to copyright that?
Yeah, so yeah, it's definitely like that. Thanksgiving, his grandpa shows up Thanksgiving, he just goes straight to the basement, watches football. If you go down there, he yells and cusses at you, and you run back up the stairs like you're good. So
So
it's like that, and sometimes now I'll hunt more bedding area groups. It won't be like singular beds. Sometimes it'll be like a whole area because the buck could be in there anywhere because it could be really good terrain for bedding, and
Yeah.
it'll just be different beds. And some people misconception of beds too is they always think it's wind based, but you got noise based, access based. Sometimes the buck doesn't really, it's thermal based more than the wind. Like there's all kinds of situations. So I feel
A
like
good area might have like that buck will move to all different beds in there based on the wind or the sun or whatever's going on in the thermals, or how the sun shines into the bed.
yeah,
They'll just keep moving all day long, and you'll find a whole bunch of beds in a really good bedding area.
yeah, and a lot of people could mistake that for like doe bedding, but I
Right.
just look at the sign and track. I rely on tracks quite a bit too. I'll look at tracks pretty hard to verify things, and then like glassing and stuff. I do that a lot more just because it's so open out here. I mean, if you got hill country and big timber, it's hard to glass. But out in Iowa, we got these big ag fields and stuff. It's a lot.
yeah,
It's a lot like hunting out west. You can glass really far distance most of the time. I got a giant spotting scope, so I can see really far. So, but everything's situational. Like, there's nothing that I don't discount. Like, I'll go check it out. Like, a deer can do a lot of different things.
Dan, what do you, not to like completely get off the subject here, but Rendell just said, talking about the doe bedding areas, what is the biggest thing that you use to decipher between a doe bedding area? Is it just the grouping, how it's outside of that bulletproof area where they're kind of maybe on the perimeter of a buck bedding area, or is there anything else that you use to maybe help yourself determine? 'Cause
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's a question that comes up quite often.
It's looking at the exact beds. Doe groups bed in circles, all looking in a different direction, and it's not has nothing to do with the wind, has nothing to do with the thermals, the sun. They'll get in a good area where they got maybe some of that stuff, but they won't have all the ingredients they need. Where a buck is a solitary animal, and he's going to pick each bed based on detecting somebody coming after him. And he's solitary, so he's trying to cover all bases. So he'll put his back up against an obstacle. He'll look downwind. Where a doe group will get out in a circle, and each bed looking in a different direction. They'll actually usually bed just a little, the same areas as bucks sometimes, but just a little bit higher elevation, maybe where they can see a little bit. You can really just look at the beds and you'll figure it out real easy as long as you got the detective mindset.
Sure. I just
And
know that comes up quite often. Hunters will struggle with that. It's like, okay, I know this is a bed. There's hair here in that, but
You'll
sometimes
see
struggle a little bit with that.
you'll see does come out of buck beds too,
yeah,
especially as it's
Sure.
one or two does, like a smaller
Hmm.
group. They will actually bed right into buck beds, just same as a buck does, when the bucks aren't there. But the groups is what I'm talking about.
Very
The
good.
one thing you can tell too with the beds is like a doe bedding area. If a doe's always bed in the same area, a lot of guys will fool it or mistake it if like they go in there and there's big rubs. Well, if bucks are rubbing in a buck bedding area, the rubs are right in the beds. But if it's a doe bedding area, the rubs are bucks going around the perimeter or going on the trails through it, marking the beds, like marking the does. But the rubs would be right in the
Right.
beds if it's a buck bedding area.
Yeah. Kind of along the lines of Avon Legend, who was just out on one of the scouting trips with us this last weekend on Saturday. He said, I look for snap branches or twigs, even nicks in the branches from the rack if there aren't any rubs.
Yeah,
Good
I
stuff.
I, uh, I learned something about Avon Legend. He got that name because he sells Avon. He showed up for the horn shop in a pink Cadillac he earned from selling Avon.
I know. I said something. I think I said something to him about having a pink truck, but then I thought about it. I'm like, wasn't that Mary Kay? Didn't they have the pink vehicles? I could be wrong. I don't
So,
remember, but
maybe
one of them did.
he just
Anyways,
liked the pink Cadillac he drove.
yeah, maybe. I mean, it's a pink Cadillac,
It's okay nowadays.
right? he
but
says I. He says I knew it was coming.
but to circle back on your question, I like to
Yeah,
be like
yeah.
less than 100. Like, I'll push the envelope quite a bit. I feel like they move so slow in the evenings coming out of their bedding,
Yep.
but they feel safe that close. Like, if you're in the bubble, they just stand up and move around and browse, and they're waiting
Mhm.
for darkness to move out. And I've really honed in on the like secondary food sources a lot in Iowa, like honeysuckle, jewelweed, stinging nettles, any kind of thing where I think they'll move to out of the bedding. There's all kinds of stuff they eat, like it's crazy amount of plants. But I'll try to find like the concentration where I think he'll get up and kind of browse to and kind of hold up. So I kind of angle that way. I'm predicting because they usually have 2, 3 trails to come out on. So you're if he's in the bed and you're set up, I mean you're batting 50-50 or at least 70, 25% or whatever. So I kind of dictate how I'm going to move by with the setup by secondary food sources. I've done really good on that on a lot of bucks, just setting up on the secondary food and watch them. I usually watch them stand up and they'll move down, and that's why the going back to the question about postseason scouting we talked about. because
Yeah.
that's when you can just lay in the bed and I can look out and see what he sees and be like, well, if I'm in that tree 7 foot off the ground, he can't see me. And how can I get here? Oh, if I come up that little ditch and I crawl, he can't see me. But if I
Yeah.
come any other way, I'm busted. So I kind of already know how to access, what tree to set up in, the height. I'll even video the tree with my phone and I'll talk to myself. Hey, I need to be 7 foot up. I need to come up this side of the tree with the sticks. I need 2 sticks. I need a uh, saddle, or sometimes the saddle doesn't work. Sometimes you have to have a tree stand. Certain trees, the way they lean or the way the setup is, I'd rather be in the stand than the saddle. So I'm dictating what I want to bring to hunt in there. And sometimes if the thermals are weird, I might have to have like a preset so I can race in when the thermals switch and I'm not taking time to have to set up. I can just get right up in the tree and set up on the deer. So I'm trying to figure out everything I need to do to hunt postseason right then and there. And that deer didn't care that I was there. He's not going to relocate because I was there in February. He could care less. But
Sure.
if you go in there hunting season and you get out in the bed, which I have a funny story about, because I met a young kid in Missouri. I went out postseason and I found these beds, and I showed up to hunt these beds in Missouri. And the kid spent like 3 or 4 days ahead of the season opener. And he went and he got into every single bed right before season opened. And I was like, I'm toast.
Oh,
Like, we're
geez.
toast right now. What'd you
Wow.
say, Nick?
Yeah. What did you say?
You
You
must
with
have.
Just
us
said,
there, Dan?
wow.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. I was like, man.
Yeah.
We're really good friends now, but I was like, bro, you should have done this in like February, March.
Yeah.
So I had to go find like a totally different property to start hunting, start from scratch. But it made me laugh. I was like, man, that's crazy. So
So
going
did you?
postseason is key if you're gonna do stuff like that.
Yeah. So Zeke Outdoors says laying in the bed really does help understanding, especially late season when you can see everything. Is that kind of what you were alluding to? Is actually like getting down in those beds and
Oh yeah, I'll lay in the bed and see what he can see, try to
and
wind
that's
map
where
it.
you're looking at. Okay, if I'm gonna sit in this tree, this is I can't go any higher than this, or I'm gonna get skyline, or if I'm too low,
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
looking at the cover situation, right?
Access, and then it's more like hunting season too. If you wait till like green up, then you get leaves starting on the tree. Early
Mhm.
season, it's fine, but I like to. You don't always kill him right off the get go, so I like to see what it's going to be like later. And then early season just gives me more confidence because if he can't see me late season, he ain't going to see me at all early because all the leaves and stuff. So I'll just feel even more confident in getting into
What a
the
lot
tree.
of people don't realize, what a lot of people don't realize is that most of the time when spring, when we're looking at beds, the bucks aren't even there.
Yeah,
We're looking at the beds from fall,
yeah, exactly.
and it really does no damage at all.
Yeah, because I get some guys that go out and they'll go summer scouting and they'll find buck beds in the summer, and I'm like, that deer ain't gonna be there, buddy. Like that's not his home range in the fall. Like you're wasting
Yeah,
your time pretty much.
yeah, that's very true. Before we get move on to buck number 3 here, we got a question for you, Rendell. How many times will you hunt a certain stand for a buck in one season?
I usually tend to only hunt a tree once.
Okay.
I kind of bounce around. Maybe I'll come back if I hunt it early season. I might hunt that tree in the rut. Like I'll give it like a month to cool off. But I usually I'm if I don't see him, then I start moving to different. I want to be unpredictable. Like I don't want him to be able to pattern me. I want him looking for me. Like when he comes out, he's gonna be like, where's this guy at? Like, and I don't want him because I'll see that on. You see that on public land when you scout. There'll be a tree stand a guy has for 20 years out there, and there's always a big trail like 100 yards away because that guy's always in that tree, and the deer know it. So the deer will loop around that tree stand like 100 yards out or so. So I don't want that to happen to me. I like to be where the deer doesn't have a clue what I'm going to be doing. I like to be like a ghost.
Right, right.
And other hunters. Like I don't want people seeing me or because I can even walk through the woods and look at the tree and be like, oh, somebody set up in this tree because the climbing sticks or the stand marks or whatever. Or there's, some guys leave trash and I can evade it. Like I'll try to get away from that. If someone's hunting there, I try to get away from that spot they hunted, or at least change trees a little bit because that guy might have been burning it up. So I might shift like 20 yards sometimes to something different to throw it at it. So I'm always like looking. I like fresh stuff.
Yeah.
How many of you like? I don't want an exact number or percentage or anything, but I'm just wondering about how many of your percentage wise senior citizen bucks came from a first set.
Probably most all 90%, maybe more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all surprise. Like I feel like you got one shot, and once they're onto you, man, good luck. I think they get way harder to hunt once they figure you out. Once you're there, you're there. Like they smell you,
Yeah.
man. That's why I like that postseason and having that sit very calculated. Because once you get in there and get your ground scent and everything, and he comes out and he hits you in the middle of the night, if he doesn't come out in the
Yeah.
daylight and you kill him, man, that gets pretty tough.
Yeah, we always talk about get as close as you can. I think it's even more important where you're at because you got a lot more open terrain.
Yeah,
They move a little further in thicker terrain, and still, I feel you got to get that close.
yeah.
And for you, they're probably moving even slower because they're coming out of something into open a lot.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're probably hitting that 80, 80 yard mark before dark. Like it's pretty tough. Like
Yeah,
even if I got, sometimes you have to set up though. Like it'll hurt you here, like you just said. Like there's no choice. I have to set up further away,
yep,
and then I'll see the buck, but he'll never make it to me until after dark. And then you just got to hope you didn't mess it up. You just got to be really good about access. Like think about where he's going to probably be, and you don't want to be walking there. Like just like looping around and stuff. So I don't really do that good. Like some guys will hunt their way in, and here that's pretty tough. Like I don't do that good. It's usually like you said, it's just first time, first sit. I'm right in there on him, and if I don't kill him, then it's usually I'm hunting another buck pretty quick because I'm not that deer knows the jig's up.
yeah. Hunting your way in is just slapping them on the ass, telling them you're coming.
Yeah, basically. There's some certain stances where I won't push back, but that's more like glassing or camera. If the deer's making it to the field edge in daylight, then I won't push back to the bed as hard. I might just push into the off of the field edge, maybe 30, 40 yards off the edge and set up because he's telling me that he's killable in daylight on the field. But I just want to push in just a little bit more than that instead of pushing all the way back and you know how it is. If you make a little noise, step on a twig, hit your stand, your platform on something, he could hear it in the bed, and then he won't come out. So if I don't need to, I won't push back that hard. But it's just situational hunting. I mean, we can talk about all these tactics, but a lot of it is applied to each deer because they all got their own personalities.
Right. That's a good point. We're going to grab one more question here, and then we're going to move into buck number 3 here. I try to get some of these questions in here for the viewers here, but Jason says, if there aren't any rubs in likely a mature buck bed, how do you determine when the buck is there during the season? And Dan, you can chime in on this, both of you, wherever.
Let
Well,
Rendell take a stab at it, then I'll answer it.
Well, you can use uh, glassing, cameras, leaf litter. If if the hair's under the leaves, then he's there early season. If the hair's on top of the leaves, then he's there pretty much now. Um, Sometimes big bucks don't leave a lot of sign. Like some of the spots I've killed these bucks in, nobody would probably ever hunt. Like if you scouted it, you probably never set up there. If you just went off of like rubs and scrapes and stuff, like minute sign. And then but when you got up by the bed, sometimes it'll be like lit up. It'll be insane amount of sign, and it's like a light bulb goes off. And sometimes it's not like that. I'll use tracks. Like if you get really good at reading like sizes of tracks, like Dan uses the toe splay, the toe wedgie. Um, There's all kinds of different methods. You just get sometimes I just got a gut feeling like it just sets up the bed just sets up so good where it'd be hardly impossible for anyone to kill this deer in this bed. That gives me high confidence that I'm going to put a sit on that because I just feel like there's one going to be there.
Dan?
I think as far as determining time when the bed's being used is what
No,
the question
I
is more
forgot all.
about. But um, I think a lot of what you started with went in that direction and was really good. The only thing I would add with it is you kind of got to look at the surroundings and think about when would this hold a deer. Number one, based on cover. Number two, why would he be there? Is there a food source? Is it near does? If
Right.
it's near does, there's going to be rubs. So if you're saying there's no rubs and you think it's a buck bedding area, it's probably not a rut bedding area,
Yeah.
which means it's early or late. Um, so I mean, you just got to be a detective. You gotta look at it and read it. Um, I know what Rendell's getting at about the sixth sense. If you look at enough of them, you kind of know, and you have a hard time saying why. But I've done more of
Right. You just kind of, it's one of
yeah.
those things you just absolutely know just because of,
Some you can look at and say this probably holds a good buck all year. And
right.
sometimes you just got to throw a hunt at early season, a hunt rut, hunt late season, and see what's going on there,
Hmm.
or sit back and glass it, or throw a camera up, whatever you got to do.
Yeah, and another thing that, and I didn't mean to get off course of his question, but thinking about it, the length of the hair in the beds too. The winter hairs can be a lot longer and thicker, and the early season coat's really short. So you can look at the hairs in the bed and look at the sizes of them sometimes, and it'll tell you if it's early or late too. You can determine that. And like Dan said, like if it's ag ground a lot, there'll be like canary grass standing up around it, and he'll be in the canary grass. But once it gets into the season, that dies off, falls over, then he's gone forever. So, what Dan said about the vegetation around the beds and stuff is on point. Like that's something definitely to look at.
All right. Well, let's keep her moving here. We have three more bucks to talk about here. So, and let's move on to the late rut madness, buck number 3.
Yeah. So this buck, I call him the floppy ear buck because one of his ears was broke from fighting. He had a big scar in it. He's
Yeah,
actually blind in one. He's blind in one eye too. You can't tell in the photo, but just an old warrior buck. This buck is massive too. Just a hog daddy of a buck. I can't even tell you. I can give you a number. It's probably wrong. I bet you I seen 20 bucks, 15 to 20 bucks probably that day. Just an insane amount of deer. Late November. One doe was in heat, and all these bucks were just everywhere. Like there's probably 10 bucks on the doe. Like when they came out on the doe, there was just 10 bucks all over. He was in that group of 10. There's deer coming from every direction, just coming up there, all different kinds of bucks. I mean, it was just insane. Like the most deer I've ever seen in one day. It's a bedding ridge. There's a big ridge, and it's all timbered, and it drops way down, and there's a spring in there. So that spring's got a lot of plant diversity and water. It never freezes up. So a lot of the deer will use that, and they only tend to bed in there on a south wind because it's a north facing slope. So the south wind comes over and they're out of the wind in there. And there's a used to be an alfalfa field on top, and they'd come out there, and that alfalfa is really good. Like that's a food source that a lot of people don't really talk about. They talk about corn and beans and stuff, but that alfalfa is really good. They love that, especially I noticed like some mature bucks really get on that alfalfa. But that so the south wind and the bed, and there's like a V, like a two drainages that make a V, and I picked the furthest one out because I wanted my wind to not go down into that main spring bottom. So I was blowing my wind, in the danger zone, but I'm just off of the bedding areas down in there. So I'm on that be the southern side of the V, the first drain, I guess, if you accessed. So I decided to set up there. There's one tree that was kind of isolated away from all the other trees, kind of more on that alfalfa edge. So I normally don't do set up on the field edge, but I'm right on the field edge in this tree, kind of pushed out in the field a little bit. And they come out of that other drain, the other V. All the deer come up out of that, the bucks and the doe, and they're fighting and carrying on, and they're pushing each other around. And then, for whatever reason, I think this big buck knew just wasn't going to give it up. I mean, he just got tired of all. He is like the grandpa. He is like, screw this. Like, it ain't worth it. He's like, you know, he's the old man at a nightclub out there. He lets the 20-year-olds do all the chasing and stuff. And he's going home. So this buck just turns. I don't even know why. He just turned off. And I'm like, this can't be happening right now. And this buck just turns and he's coming right down that alfalfa field. And I'm like, he's going to pass right in front of me. I'm in a tree stand for this hunt, sitting on. I like to shoot sitting down, so I'm sitting down. I never shoot standing up hardly ever. I usually sit down when I hunt out of a tree stand. In a saddle, I stand up and lean, so it's kind of weird because in the stand I sit, saddle I
So
stand up.
you said you sit or stand in this? Say that
And
again.
I sit down in a tree stand. I don't ever stand
Okay.
up. I shoot sitting down. In
Okay.
the saddle, though, I stand up the whole time in the saddle, like I'm a leaner. So I'm leaning the whole time in the saddle, standing up. So it's kind of funny because I do the opposite for the equipment I'm using. But he just comes on down, and then I hear something behind me coming up too. And right when he comes out, he's walking. I hear something. Something got downwind of me and blew once, and he just kind of turns and he's staring, and I'm like, oh man, he's probably 50, 55 yards out in the field. And I'm just kind of like, you know what I mean? You just have that timer where you're like, oh, this hunt's about over. So I just draw back, and then he just turns and starts walking again. And I just give him the old man, and I let it fly at like 55 yards. I mean, I crushed this buck. I mean, I heart shot him at 55 yards, sitting down on my ass in a tree stand through not a very big window, a shooting lane, because I don't like the on public lane you can't cut stuff, so you're shooting out of really tight windows. I'll use like zip ties and stuff like that to kind of give me lanes to shoot through. But and he didn't. He probably went, I don't know, 100 yards and piled up down into that alfalfa field. Super mass. I mean, the buck's got insane mass. He's that buck right there. Um, just crazy amount of mass on him. So he's just awesome. It's a memorable hunt to me just because all the other bucks I've seen. I mean, he was the biggest one, but there was a lot of really cool other bucks that I've seen. Probably one of the tallest bucks I've ever seen. I seen a couple hundred yards away coming to that alfalfa field. I mean, the thing was just insanely tall. And then just a bunch. It was just a super cool hunt, and just shooting a deer like that at 55 yards, sitting down in the stand was just awesome. And just knowing not push into the bedding that time to stay out on the edge. Like you just I always it just gives you confidence and it just feels cool when you like it feels like you put the pieces together. It's not always intentional. Like you just do stuff and a lot of times I just set up on instinct, but when you think about like why you set up and how it all worked out, you're like, man, I played that perfectly, it just went the right way.
Right. Got a couple questions for you here. How long is your draw on your bow?
32 and a half
Wow.
is my actual draw. I do something a little different sometimes. I will shoot a shorter draw bow. I do like to short draw a bow because I feel like I shoot a compound more instinctual.
Okay.
I mean, I draw super fast. Right when the pin hits what I'm aiming at, I just let go. I don't. A lot of guys will pull back and they'll lock in their anchor and they think about the bubbles and levels and all the things. I'm pretty much like super fast, but I've noticed though when I hunt low, like I do, because that hunt I was pretty low. You just don't have a lot of time. You just have to snap shoot really quick, or you're giving the deer too much time to pick up your movements and your
Sure.
scent. So I just instinctively snap shoot a compound quite a bit.
Okay.
So
Let's see.
I tend to feel like my point was is the short draw. You get the full draw quicker with the shorter draw bow,
Yeah, right.
and they didn't make bows my draw length when I first started hunting, so I learned on short draw bows. So my form's kind of crap because the bows are way too short for me back then. But I learned to shoot that way, so I can shoot that way really good. Um,
What was the length that you think you were shooting early on?
Most bows I could get to like with a D loop, cams maxed out.
31.
Sometimes I use an overdraw too, but you're probably like 29 and 3/4, 30 inch. So I'm
Yeah.
shooting like 2 inches shorter almost. And you're like, I tend to push my head forward into the bowstring to get the anchor point on it.
Interesting.
But I actually prefer shooting that way because I feel like I'm just used to it. I learned that way and I can get to draw a lot quicker.
Yeah.
I do have a couple long draw bows and they're proper formed and I shoot a little bit better with them. But I don't know man, you're coming back so far. Like, I don't know. It's just a mental thing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I mean, every bow technician is probably like passing out right now because I'm saying this. I just prefer it. You know what I mean? It's just comfort
Yeah.
level. I think it's confidence. I don't know.
I got another quick question here for you. Matthew chimes in, says, do you zero in on two specific target bucks every year, and how often are you successful with that?
I like to have about 12. Like I
That
like to
you
have about
that are kind of on your radar?
yeah, I like to have as many as possible. If I could have 20 bucks I'd like to kill, I would have 20 bucks I'd like to kill. Because
Right.
I'm way more aggressive. I will get crazy aggressive if I have a lot more bucks than normal to go after. Because if I blow one up, I don't care. I'll just go hunt the other one. Because it doesn't, like we were talking before we got on here. Giant bucks are cool, but it's not the only thing anymore. Like, man, it's
Right.
all about the hunt and the setups and adventures. So you might not kill the biggest deer, but man, there's so many great bucks out there that have different characteristics and stories and things. So
Yeah.
for me, I usually tend to not lock in on one. If I do, it usually blows my whole season. I've done that and you eat a tag soup. You're just sitting there by yourself like a loser, you know, you're down and out. All your buddies are talking crap about you, man. Everybody thinks you suck and you're just eating tag soup because you hunted a 1 buck all year.
Yeah.
So I like 10 or more because I can get aggressive. And I worry about other people. I don't worry about them like when I'm hunting, but I'm worried about what people are doing when I'm not there, if they're bumping bucks. And like
Mm.
the DNR will do crazy stuff, man. They'll come in and do a TSI right in the middle of deer season sometimes. And oh, there goes that buck. You might not get the win you need to hunt 3 of those bucks for a month. I
Yeah.
mean, or some guy takes out his corn too early, or the neighboring property has corn and he never harvests it, so the deer shift. Like I like to have a stockpile of bucks.
Yeah.
And I don't like Dan asked about how many that one guy and Dan talk about not over hunting a property. I feel like if you're going after 1 or 2 bucks, you're
Mhm.
over hunting a property a lot because you're after him, and then he'll figure it out pretty quick. You're pushing him off more, so I don't like the pressure that much. So if you got other deer, it takes pressure off your target bucks, and I don't care which one I kill. I mean, if you have like a 240 or something that's insane, I might put a little bit more time in on that deer just because it's a once in a lifetime deer. But
Well, sure.
even then, you got to be disciplined to know when to break off and go hunt other bucks.
Yeah, that makes sense. Dan, did you have any other thoughts on this buck here before we moved on?
I think you covered it pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. All right, let's move
Awesome
on
buck, by
to
the way.
what? I'm sorry, what was that, Dan?
I just said awesome buck, by the way.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I can
fantastic.
tell by your hand that thing is just massive.
Oh yeah, I make all my deer look small because I'm so big. A lot of guys will give me crap, and I'm like, dude, I'm 6'8", man. I make a lot of deer look.
That hand that's holding that antler, you
Right.
could put a football in that hand, maybe two, and you wouldn't even be able to see him.
Right. I'm like, I'm looking at my hand right now. And like,
Yeah, I got some mitts on me.
Yeah.
I could be a catcher in baseball and don't even need a glove.
all right, let's move on to buck number 2 here. We're moving up. This
Drum
is
roll. Woo! No one's ever seen this deer before.
this is a Beast
Brand new
Report
buck.
exclusive here.
Yeah, brand new buck. My 2025 buck. So I did this buck a little different than normal. This is a super wide open piece. I mean, I don't even know why I was hunting there half the time I'm hunting there. I'm like, there can't be a deer here, but there was. I mean, you use your instinct. So I did some summer glassing, and I seen these 2 bucks on this super wide open piece. I mean, there ain't a lick of nothing there. There's one little tiny woodlot that's about the size of my front yard, and there's a little creek that comes in there that's pretty deep that cuts across the property. Then it kind of dwindles out by this woodlot, but it's super growed up. So early season, like we were talking about the vegetation, it gets all this canary grass, and it's inland. There's an inland marsh in there because in ag country you'll get these little marshes and stuff. So it's actually like big open ag country, but there's like this little inland marsh in there, and you got all these different marsh grasses and plant types, which kind of made sense to me because the diversity, and they can get in that creek and they can travel a long ways. Because in open country, I noticed, especially Kansas, a lot of those bucks will get in the creeks and they travel in the creeks, and you'll never see them because in the daylight they're running the creeks and they navigate miles through these creek systems. So it made a lot of sense with the diversity in there, and then that deep creek that runs off that hooks to some other creek systems. And there's some CRP mixed in there. And I was like, nobody would ever hunt here. So that kind of gave me a lot of confidence that there might be something in there. Then I seen those bucks I glassed, and they weren't right in, they were like off to the side of the piece. But I figured they would utilize the woodlot at some point because there's a lot of browse and stuff up in there. So what I did was we got done with the show circuit, and then I came back and I got some. I've been diving into like mock scrapes the last couple of years. I run a ton of cameras on mock scrapes just for inventory. I usually don't hunt the mock scrapes, but I just like to know what deer are around. And I was trying out a new scent this past season. So I went in there, and I actually take a electric weed eater with me. That's a little trick that I use to make the scrapes really fast. I use that electric weed eater, and a couple other guys do this too in the industry. And I'll make the scrapes all the way down the dirt. And a
Mhm.
lot of guys use the ropes and stuff, but I don't really have that good of luck with the ropes. I like these grapevines that grow. I'll go out and cut, like 5 foot sections of grapevines, and I'll hang those off of trees, or I'll just
Sure.
use like the existing trees that are there. In Iowa, especially, I noticed like red oaks, bucks absolutely love making scrapes on red oaks in Iowa. If I see a red oak, I can almost guarantee there's a scrape on a lot of them. If you get like in the eastern half of the country, like Pennsylvania and Indiana stuff, they use the beech trees a lot. They love beech trees. If you're out like eastern part, Kansas, cedars. For some reason, they like the cedars a lot too. Yeah, even Iowa, I've noticed they make scrapes on cedars quite a bit. But they'll some kind of like in Iowa, maple, even walnut will kind of work a little bit. But there's a hub in there. So like there's just one spot where everything comes together in this property. So I put a mock scrape in there, put a cell cam on it, and then I bounced out because I was trying to catch up from being on the road for the trade shows, and I'm just throwing cameras out, getting everything ready to go for the season. I was getting ready to leave for Nebraska. I only had like a couple days. So I made the scrape, put the camera in there, bounced out. It's the first deer that I got on camera that the past season was that buck. But I didn't know exactly where he was bedded at, which I like to know, but I haven't been able to postseason scout that much the last couple of years because of trade shows. I'm always gone during postseason scouting, so I've been messing with all kinds of new tactics and trying to make a new system. But I felt like, if I get a buck on camera, I can figure it out in season. I really focused, like I talked about, I love postseason, but the last couple of years, because of trade shows, I really focused on in season hunting, scouting, like doing everything I could possibly do in season and getting better at that. I like to grow as a hunter too. I challenge myself a lot. So I like to fill gaps. Like if I'm not good at something, I will spend a lot of time doing that one thing to get better at it. And it may hurt me a little bit in the short term, but I feel like over the long haul of your hunting life, you'll get better and better and it'll pay off down the road and you'll be more consistent. And when you run into certain scenarios, you'll be prepared for that and you'll have a better chance of being in the game. And a win for me, I just want to be in the game on deer. Like sometimes, you're not always going to kill the buck, but if I feel like I was in the game and had a good shot at a deer, I feel good about myself.
Yeah.
So what happened was I was hunting other bucks too with this buck, and I was just kind of trying to figure out like kind of where he was bedded, how he was moving. I was starting to take data on the camera, like the wind direction, what time he was showing up, and he wasn't super frequent. Like he would just show up at like odd times, always a south wind, which was the wind coming from the parking lot. Like all the guys were walking in. If you got a south wind, the wind's blowing right to all the deer. So I'm like, all right, he's bedded somewhere. And I had good knowledge that he was bedded just because the time too. Like if he's on the camera in a certain time gap, like if it's an hour, like in that hour frame, like before dark or after dark, then he's pretty close. Like if you're getting him at 2 a.m. in the morning, he's probably not bedded on the property at all. And I don't know if I was to put a lot of time into it, but he was showing up on the camera pretty close to daylight in the morning and evening. So I figured he had to be in there somewhere. So he showed up. I Early October, I put a super aggressive sit. I mean, I went right into the heart of this thing. And then and then I kind of made a couple mistakes. I didn't have a tree really picked out. I just decided I was just going to do it when I went in and hunted. So I scouted my way in pretty much, even though there wasn't a lot to scout, but I snuck in there, tried to find a tree, and they were all like the crappiest trees you could ever dream of. So I ended up in this like 7 trunk chaos, branches everywhere. And I mean, the tree's massive, man. This tree's like this giant cottonwood tree. You know how those cottonwoods are, Dan. I mean, they're monsters, dude.
Yep.
I mean, I got 8 foot ropes on my climbing sticks, and they're like barely even getting it to hang on the tree. So I got 2 sticks, and I got the saddle with me, and I got in the tree. I felt like I made too much noise trying to get in there, just because I was fumbling around a lot trying to get on that tree, and the cottonwoods are kind of noisy. So I didn't see anything, and I kind of got like, oh man, like that wasn't good. I went right into the heart of that place and kind of boogered it up. So I let it rest, and then I waited till later, like middle October. I went in and I did some observation sits. I stayed way far out, got in trees on the edges, and I just climbed pretty high. Like I'd get up pretty high and just watch to see where the deer are moving through. And then I caught a glimpse of him, like right at the edge of darkness. So I was like, all right, he's still there, but he hadn't been on camera. So I think, my sit probably kind of pushed him out of the area a little bit. Like he started avoiding that one little area where the camera was and where my sit was at. Um, I did 2 more observation sits, but I only seen him the once. But I did see some other deer, and they came out of the actual creek. And what I found out later is there's a couple benches in the creek that you would never see unless you actually scouted it boots on the ground. And these deer were bedding on the benches like they would do in the mountains. They bed on the benches in hill country and mountains, but these benches are inside of the creek and nobody can see them in there, and they were bedded on that. So that kind of keyed me out a little bit that I pushed in too far. I was like, okay, maybe my first hardcore sit I went too deep. Maybe I need to back up. And then I did one more glassing session. I stayed out and I used my spot and scope. And the crops are coming out too. there was corn and beans, and then some alfalfa in there, which is really diverse food source um, that they plant in there. So the beans came out, which the beans don't really do anything for me in Iowa, anyways. By the time October 1st sits, the beans are brown and the bucks already moved off them. So I never really care about the beans much, but the corn, a lot of times they'll bed in the corn. So I was wondering if he was bedding in the corn or corn around there, because there was a couple of fields of corn on the properties that I was like, okay, well, he could be bedding in any of these. And then that corn got picked, but there was a cornfield like 3/4 of a mile away that creek ran to. So I was like, oh, okay, I want to glass this, and I glassed it. And right at last light, I seen two bucks headed to the corn. So I was like, all right, they're hitting that cornfield on the private side. So that kind of keyed me in. Okay. And then I got a picture of that buck on a south wind, and there's really nothing in there but the woodlot where the camera is. And the buck showed up in daylight on the camera coming from the south on the south wind. And I was like, a light bulb went off. There's literally nothing to the south. I'm like, that deer is bedded in that little woodlot, that little micro woodlot I talked about, that butts up to that little inland marsh, because that marsh does butt up to that. But I didn't feel like he would be in that marsh just because, I mean, I don't know. I just didn't feel right. I felt like he would be in the woodlot, like on the edge looking out. So I devised a plan, even though the camera told me only a south wind, but my camera wasn't on the direction of the corn. So on a north wind, I went it all the way down, and there's like a levee road that goes over that little inland marsh. The inland marsh meets the creek, and there's like a little tractor road they go over, and everybody goes over that tractor road. So I was like, I bet you that buck is watching the road, because in ag country, a lot of the bucks watch the access, and the alfalfa in there. They have contractors. Like the farmer had some hay bales lined up, some round bales in there. Um, so I was like, and that's kind of by the woodlot. So I'm like, he's going to be watching the edge of that tractor road. So I went down, and right at the start, before the tractor road, there's an island of trees, like kind of Dan does in the marshes in Wisconsin. There'll be like an island of like some crap trees. And if you were behind the island of trees, you couldn't see the woodlot. So I actually jumped off the road and I went down into the marsh and all that big tall grass. And I weaved my way through. And the north wind was key because it was like a front coming in, like nasty weather coming. So I'm like, he's going to get up sooner than normal. And there was high wind, so it's going to cover up my noise when I'm coming through this marsh grass and stuff. So I worked my way real slow, got up onto the island of trees, and the initial tree I wanted to get in didn't work. So I just kept going down, and then there was second to the last tree I decided to get in. There was like all this, it's almost like a cave of like overhanging branches, and it still had green leaves on it and stuff. I literally set up flat footed on the ground. I had the saddle with me, and I set up facing the woodlot, so I got my power shot. I don't have to move. I can just draw back and shoot. So hunting that low, I don't want to be moving a bunch. And I got some accessories on me to help hold my bow. I got a little sling that I can put my bow cam in, so I can just hold my bow, but it doesn't wear my arm out. And then I hang my bow on the tree too, but I got everything figured out. I got in the tree, got set up, and I'm just waiting. And then boom, I see him come up out of the bed, back in the little wood lot behind those round bales, and he just stands up. He comes out, he hits a scrape, and there's a open gap between me and the buck, like that little inland marsh. I don't know, 80 yards or so. So I was probably set up 90 yards away from him. And he covered that 80 yards. Shoot, I don't even know, 8 seconds. I mean, he was on a mission, man.
Wow.
Like, came out of there because he laid there all day. Because after I killed him, I went and I found this bed. And when I laid in his bed, you could see the where that tractor road dumped out. So everybody that came out across that tractor road, he was looking right at it. And the tree that I
Wow.
ended up getting in, if I would have went any further, he would have seen me. But the tree I picked was the last tree he couldn't see. So I got in that real quiet, and he came right out, and I shot him at 25 yards. And the levee road was actually higher than me, so the buck was actually up above me a little bit. I'm 7 foot off the ground, like I hit my head on my platform when I climbed down. I was trying to walk under it, and I hit my head on it. So it was about 7 foot. So he's up above me a little bit, so I'm actually shooting up. But you can see that entry hole, and man, it just devastated that buck, that 2 inch broadhead I was using. And he went probably, what'd you say, Dan?
It's the entry. I thought it would be the exit. It looks a little
No,
low.
no, that's the entry.
But you were shooting upward, right?
Yeah, I shot up into him.
Ah.
And then he circled around me. He went into that inland marsh. And then he stopped. I just seen him stop and just start looking around. And then he kind of disappeared into that marsh grass. So I backed out for, I don't know, a couple hours. I'd rather be safe than sorry. I went in there later on, like a couple hours later, and trailed him. And, he died pretty much, I don't know, 20 yards from where I seen him disappear into that marsh grass.
What
So
Yeah,
broadhead?
there was a couple of questions actually about that.
it
What's
was a
that
G,
wound on his leg there?
it was a
You know,
G5 mega meat.
That's what Rat Slayer's using. I've been impressed with the holes he's getting in deer.
yeah,
Oh yeah, I've actually pretty much all the bucks on this storyline I've shot with the G5 broadheads.
nice.
I shot the dead meat. I used to use the dead meat. There's some there's some things I like about both broadheads. The 2 inch cut, you get the big wound channel and they die pretty quick, but I feel like they know they're shot, so they'll take off. They'll tear out of there like a bat out of hell. The 1.5 inch cut, I've noticed when I shoot them, they don't tear out of there. They almost just jump and they just start looking around like, what the hell was that? Because it just goes through them so quick because it doesn't have that big aggressive cut.
Yeah.
So I've way shorter recovery distances on the 1.5 inch cut. I feel like just because they don't run, because it doesn't like slap them on the ass with a 2x4 is what I call it.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a good analogy. Very
You said there
impressive.
were some questions.
Let's see. Not much for questions. There was just a lot of people focused on.
Oh yeah, the entry. That's
On
definitely, yeah, entry hole.
that makes sense though now, right? That you explained it. These questions were coming up early on, but
Yeah, I'm
you were
shooting
kind of shooting up.
70 pound bow. I got, I'm a longer draw than most guys. I'm shooting 300 something feet per second. I got a lot of kinetic energy going through the deer. I got a pass through on the buck. It
Nice.
went out the other side, the same spot.
Well, congrats. That's the 25. That's the
Yeah, I call it the EHD graveyard buck because we had EHD here really bad the last 2 years, and there's not a lot of deer. I mean, it's hard hunting here right now, where I live at, anyways. I mean, you can go to a different part of the state and get into the higher deer population, but where I live, the EHD pretty much annihilated the deer
is it
population.
that bad there?
Oh yeah, for like one of the first times the DNR banned doe tags. Like the last 2 years, you can't buy doe tags anywhere in the western half of Iowa.
Wow,
Wow.
that's
So it's pretty bad. Like I would see when I first moved to Iowa, you could see 20, 30 deer sit pretty easy. Now I might see three if I'm lucky. Like I'll drive down the road. 2 years ago, when we first had the EHD, you would drive down the road, see hundreds of deer a night. Every field would have a deer in it. Now I could go 20 days and not see a deer on the side of the same road. Like it's pretty wild.
yeah, that's sad. I mean, and how you moved to Iowa? How many years ago was it now?
Probably 16 years, round in there, probably now.
Yeah.
16 years ago.
Wow.
I was like right on the tail end of like the heyday. I actually know a guy that hunted. He's lived here all his life. I mean, the guy's killed like, I don't even know, 60, 150 plus. I mean, the dude's just phenomenal hunter. But he would tell me that he used to set up and he'd see 100 deer a day. He'd pass like 2150s a day. He said it was just and he hunted like zone 5. That's like the best of the best. I mean, it's insane, and zone 5 is like lights out, like some of the best hunting in the whole country, hands down. And it's not quite that good anymore. I mean, it's still the best zone, but the way he talked, man, you could just go anywhere, and that illusion of Iowa, you could get behind every tree and kill a booner. I mean, I guess it used to be close to that before I actually got here. So I missed the heydays pretty much. I got in like on the latter part, like when EHD really started setting in.
Yeah, that's such a devastating situation that the deer herd is facing with
Yeah, it's kind
EHD.
of crazy because they put all this focus on like CWD, which really doesn't kill deer. But when EHD kills all the deer, but they don't focus on EHD. It drives me kind of crazy. I wish they would focus on the EHD and try to figure that out. And it's like every couple years now we get it because it's like it comes from the south and it's in that little midge fly. And it seems like
Right.
when you get a heavy rain in the spring, and then that water recedes, it opens up all the mud where they lay their larvae and then they hatch out of that. And then you get deer that survive and they get immunity, but a couple years later, it's like we get a new strain, like it mutates a little bit. And then a deer that survived before, it's a new strain and it just kills all of them off. And you can tell if you shoot a buck and his hooves are like deformed, then he had EHD previously. But it
That's
only
wild.
attacks the old deer. So it pretty much wipes out your older age class bucks. And then if it's really bad, they'll wipe out your older does too. So we're getting now back where these deer I'm running into were born like 3 years ago. So you're getting a lot of 3.5, 4.5-year-old bucks. But what I have noticed interesting is since the older deer class is gone, they don't have to fight for the resources as much. So these younger deer are putting on way more antler way faster. Like they're just blowing up, adding like 20 inches a year almost on some of these deer that I've been monitoring through trail cameras and stuff. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you think about it. The parallels between that and pandemics that the human race it's supposed to hit harder with the older age class. Does anybody know like how long EHD has actually been around for? Like Dan, do you know? I feel like we've only really heard much about it in the last 10 years, right?
Well, I think it's been in the south for forever, but the deer are immune to it. The deer in the north aren't exposed, but it's I think sometimes the warmer winters now they
Yeah.
don't kill them off because you don't get the deep freeze down into like way down in the soil. You don't get that freeze anymore. Like I feel like back then it got way colder, so I think it kept them at bay more, and we got more moisture. Like Iowa was in a historic drought for like I don't even know 5 years straight. Seems to be like on when it's a drought. Like this year was a wet year, and we had no EHD at all. Like I can't even tell you about maybe 2 bucks I've heard about the whole state. But where you did get EHD was like Michigan, Ohio got wiped out. Like, oh my God, Ohio was insane. Even
Yeah.
Pennsylvania a little bit. Like West Virginia got EHD. Indiana, Southern Indiana got hammered this year and like 3 years, 4 years ago. So I mean, it's getting more prevalent. Like, and there's companies like coming out trying to figure it out, like putting stuff into like foods or water enzymes and stuff. And there's like most of it's like private land though, like their water holes, they do stuff to them, or they switch to like ponds, like rubber mats and stuff, so you don't get the mud flats on them and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. We're at the mercy of Mother Nature, though. I mean, if we don't have EHD here for a while, there'll be some world class deer again pretty quick in Iowa. Like I got hopes for the future if the EHD will stay at bay. I got a lot of really good young bucks that are coming up.
I mean, I would think that if the interest was really there, if the powers that be would find some sort of combatant for this midge fly, right?
Yeah,
I mean, some sort
yeah, but
of
and then money, like, do they have the budget for that, administering that? And
well,
there'll be other there's other entities that want the deer eradicated that you're fighting against.
Exactly. That was my next point.
Yeah,
It's like,
there's a lot of stuff going on that I'm
right.
just
That we're not
I'm just
privy
a
to.
public land hunter, man. That's above my pay grade. I just go take the cards that I'm dealt and I just go hunt, man.
Right. Hope for the best, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Let's go ahead. If Rendell, if you're ready, let's go ahead and get into your number one favorite hunt.
Yeah, perfect.
Go ahead and just pull up the picture of the buck here.
That's how I walked up on him right there. I mean, just an awesome buck. Double throat patch. The buck's just in. I felt like this was the most in tune tactical buck I've ever killed. Is why I picked him. I mean, every move I made was just on point. Never knew the deer was there. Went off a gut instinct. 2 miles deep. I mean, this buck is back there. I mean, just a brute. It took me 6 hours to drag this buck out. I mean, I about died getting this deer out of this marsh. Like, it was not fun. I didn't think I was ever getting him out. Like, so I found this. What happened was I was duck hunting. I duck hunt some, and I was duck hunting. I'm out here in a marsh duck hunting, and I happened to see a couple does while I was duck hunting. And I don't know, it just clicked in my brain that was all right. Well, even though this gets all this duck hunting pressure, there's still deer here. So I was like, I'm going to go scout this. And I was looking on the aerials, and it had some interesting diversity and terrain features that I really liked. So I've spent a lot of time kind of scouting it postseason. It's got like a cattail marsh. It's got a canal that separates a lot of stuff from the main entry. So you got to cross water, like Dan said. We were talking before the podcast about Wisconsin. So there's water barrier, and then you can get back. And there was a big, like, point island thing that had a lot of diversity on it. It was like a cedar grove that came out on this point, and the point runs way off into the marsh. And then there's like honey locust trees and walnuts on the very end of the point. And I talked about the secondary food source things that I look for, and that really keyed me off. I was like, oh, there's honey locusts out here. And deer absolutely love honey locusts in Iowa. A lot of guys think they'll only eat them late because they're like soybeans, they'll freeze and they'll kind of change. But early season, if you break them open, there's like a green mesh in them. And they really like to eat that green mesh when they first fall off the trees. So I made notes of that. And then I just, and there was like 3 separate bedding areas that I kind of found in there. There was like that cattail marsh bedding where you had to go across the water barrier. There was like a whole thicket thing, and there was some bedding in that, a lot of sign. And then back past that point, there's like a big kind of marsh bay, I would call it. And the water was lower than normal. So the bays were all growed up. So it had all this vegetation out in these bays, and there was some bedding out in the bay. So I made a note of that, and I was like, all right. My plan was to come back and hunt this. And I found some tracks that were going back to that bay. I didn't have like an individual bed picked out. I just followed the tracks back, and they went off, and they went out to the point. They were headed to that point, and then the bay passed the point. So I was like, I think he's got to be in the bay past the point, whatever book these tracks belong to. When I picked them up, really big set of tracks. It just went through all the bedding areas. It went through the cattail bedding. It went through the thicket bedding, and then the thicket bedding in, and it turned to like cedars, and then it went out into this. There's like when you hit that thicket, there's like a bay right here, and then there's another point and another bay. So I'm like, And I didn't even go back and scout a lot of that. I kind of left it alone. I was just like, he's gonna. I figured he'd be in the further bay away past the point, and there was some bedding in these bays. So I was like, I'm just not even gonna mess with it. So I backed out, and I never went back. Didn't have a picture of this buck. Nothing. I just had that track to go off of. And then there's a lot of rubs. Like the cattail marsh had a little bit, but that thicket was really tore up. I mean, tore all the hell with big rubs and stuff. And then you had the point with the honey locust trees and stuff, and past that. So um, I did later on. I never even touched it. Didn't go back in there. And then I had a random day. I used to be I worked in a school, like I was a teacher for like behavior kids, and something happened with an outlet in my house. Like it kind of like, you know how they start smoking and almost catch fire, like the AC's in there. And this is early season. This is like October, early October, and it was like burnt. So I took the day off. This is like a Monday. I took the day off, and the guy was supposed to show up, and he never did in the morning. And I said, "Screw this! I'm going deer hunting." And I started looking at the wind, and the wind was a northeast again. Like we rarely get that wind, but when I looked at the aerial, there was a perfect wind to hunt the point. The wind would be kind of coming off the edge of the point towards the direction I was coming a little bit, and then all my thermals would be dumping off because I decided if I hunt the point, I was going to set up right on the edge, so you know the water will pull your thermals out in the evening. What I did different was I went in, I checked that cattail marsh. There was some rubs, but I felt like it was just too close to the parking lot, so I just kept going, and I went to where I seen all that big sign, and the big sign wasn't really there this time on that where you got to cross the water. I went through the water and went up into the thicket, and the sign just wasn't really there. And but coming in, I noticed there was a big standing cornfield like a mile away, and it was kind of like a direction the buck wouldn't go. You know, I'm like the thicket's out of the way. Like if the buck's coming to the thicket, it wouldn't be a good way for him to go to that corn. So I'm like, he's probably not using this at all. And there's a creek channel in this marsh, and the water was lower than normal. But I waded through the creek channel, and it kind of you wind up through all this crazy stuff and trees everywhere. I mean, it's hell on earth. I mean, I'm sinking down to my nutsack and freaking mud, and you're pulling your way. It's tedious work, but it was perfect because I'm like nobody would ever come this way or through the water. So, and I noticed the creek channel comes right up to the end of this point. So I followed that creek channel all the way up. Super quiet. It's early season. So there's vegetation everywhere. If a buck was bedded right by you, he would never see you. So I just went real slow, right into the wind, got right up onto the point, and the point is like way higher. You got to crawl up to get up on this point, just because it eroded away probably from like currents and stuff. But I crawled up on the point, and I stayed back, and I actually used when I was coming in, I used my binos, and I'd seen the honey locust on the tree, the pods. So I was like, all right, I thought that I was like, all right, perfect. I didn't want to go up on the point because I'm like, if the buck's bedded somewhere, he could skyline me if I get too far on the point. So what I did was I picked my tree, I kneeled down on the ground, stayed low, and I just looked, and I tried to pick a good tree. There was a walnut tree, I don't know, maybe 10 yards off of the point, and the point kind of did a little where it narrows back down, kind of like a pinch, and that walnut was by that. So it was 10 yards up, but it would put me on a little drop where I was like, my thermals should drop down on that little bottleneck thing. So I went right up to the tree. I set up again right off the ground. I put my platform probably 9 foot off the ground. Like I reached as high as I could, put my saddle platform up there, two sticks. I got in the saddle. Uh, Probably 5 minutes after I got set up, I had a group of does come through, but they came out of the cedar thicket, probably 5, 6 does. They come fed on the honey and locusts, and they kind of went back and they went off and they went headed towards that cornfield, but they never went towards the thicket. They cut it and they went a more efficient route to that corn, kind of like I thought that buck would do. So that kind of gave me a lot of confidence. And then two smaller bucks came out, did the same thing the does did. So I'm like, all right, you know, I'm like, I was seeing a lot of deer, which kind of concerned me because usually only if you see a big buck, it's usually that's all you see is like maybe one or two deer in a big buck. So I was like, oh man, there's a lot of deer back here. But I was like, early teal season, it might have pushed, duck hunters might have pushed all the deer back here or whatnot. And they weren't coming from the direction I thought the buck was going to come from. But I looked out in that bay and I caught the antlers. I seen the top of the rack, like the tines move out there.
Oh,
So
sure.
this buck, he was bedded out in that bay like I thought when I originally kind of scouted it. And he just gets up and he makes a beeline right to me. I mean, he just comes right up, walks right at me. And I'm out in the open because I'm not behind the tree, I'm on the side. So he's literally walking straight at me. And he gets to about 5 yards and he's just looking at me, looking under me. And I'm like, I need to draw. I'm like, and he put his head down and started eating a honey locust. And I drew back and then he went a little bit more and got like right behind this tree, which I sent you a picture of the actual shot. The green light
You did,
swooped.
yeah.
Yeah, that green light was my lighted knock, but he's right behind that little tree. So what I did was I actually leaned out in the saddle a little bit and kind of moved,
Okay.
and that gave me a better shot angle. Like it opened up his vitals from that tree, and then I ended up shooting him 5 yards. Had no clue I was ever even there. I never smelled me, never was alert, nothing. I mean, just the calmest deer as can be. Shot him kind of high, but went right down in there. He probably ran, I don't even know, less than 100 yards. He fell off that point, which that point I said was higher. So he dropped down, hit that log. I mean, I found him laying on that log like that. And I shot that mega meat, that 2-inch cut, man, just devastated him. And you can see all the bubbles, all the lung blood that like up by the nose and back on the body. You can see all the big bubbles on
Sure. Yep.
him. So I felt like I just played everything. So that's why it's my favorite. And you can't see in that photo, but he's got a double throat patch. You can see it right there, that double throat patch right there.
Let's see. Hang on.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so that's him. So and I just felt like I was on point. Like I could have set up at the cattail marsh, I could have set up at the thicket, but I ended up needed to go deeper. Like, you know what I mean? Is the buck ever going to make it out there? And I read the sign right, and I was like, all right, the buck's not hitting the thicket. Let's go back further. And I got the secondary food call. I took a different access route, even though it sucked, by going through the water. I had the good wind, the thermal setup. I was on the edge. None of the deer ever really detected me. So I felt like that's why it's my favorite deer, just because I felt like I was so dialed in on like everything I was doing. Like
Sure.
it just gave me like, oh man, it's kind of like that aha moment. Like, oh man, you felt like you made it. Like, man, like I just went out here and I was like a serial killer on this thing, like damn, point everything was insane. Like all the stuff I could have done different, but I didn't. So you just felt like you were just elite, man. It was like on top of the world, dude.
That's a great story. That's awesome.
Yeah. There's something about when when you're trying to figure out a buck, and it's almost like, and a lot of people don't get this if they like rotate through stands or hunt food plots or whatever. But there's like one tree in the forest you can pick to kill that animal, and
Yeah.
you got to pick that tree right and have the animal be bedded where you think he is and come through where you think he's going to go. When it all goes right on, especially if it's an animal you got history with and you're actually hunting that animal, that is a feeling that you can't replicate with anything.
Oh yeah, you're just on the moon, man. It's so amazing, and it's like if you would have, if I would have went too far on the point, the does would have got me. There's so much stuff that can go wrong that when you think about if you would have done this or that, like, and a lot of guys probably would have set up way before. I mean, I went 2 miles back on this thing, like through all this crap, just because the sign just didn't seem right to me. than what I seen postseason when I was in there, like scouting shed hunting. And it wasn't even and I seen the deer in there, but a buddy of mine wanted to go in there and shed hunt. So that's the only time I was ever really in there looking for deer. Is we went in there shed hunting and scouting and stuff. And he doesn't even really deer hunt. He just likes to shed hunt. So the tracks is what really dialed me on that, was just seeing those big tracks and then all that sign in that thicket. I was like, okay, there's a big buck in here.
You got to drag 2 miles by yourself?
Yeah, it sucked. I did have a guy come take photos, but he had a bum arm, so he couldn't do anything. So I pretty much drug it by myself, and I'm really secretive where I hunt. Like, man, I don't trust anybody. Like, I'm good. Like, I'll do it if I got to. But it took me 6 hours. I mean, I was hurting. Like, it was bad. It was early October too, so it got kind of hot. Like, good God. And there was trees everywhere. Like, you had to pick up the trees and throw them out of the way to drag the deer. And I was sinking in the mud. I wish the water would have been higher, because I probably would have put a life vest on it and floated him. But the water was just shallow enough where you couldn't float the deer. So I pretty much just drug him manpower. And then eventually I got a little car. I tried a little cart, like a 4-wheel cart, put him in that, but the tires weren't wide enough. It was just sinking down in the mud so bad. Like, I should have had a jet sled. The jet sled would have been the way to go, but
Yep.
I'm not used to hunting marsh stuff. Like, that was really the first, like, huge marsh hunting I was diving into, because Iowa usually hunt ag, but I got really into the marsh stuff, um, especially after watching like a lot of your video stuff back in the day. So
Yeah. You know what I find is, like, when you get down to like Iowa or Kansas or whatever, marshes are really good because nobody's hunting them. Everybody's
yeah,
hunting it.
yeah, it's almost like the hill country here too. Like, a lot of guys don't understand thermals because they hunt flat ag land.
Yep.
So I actually look for that stuff, like any kind of marsh or elevation change. I really key in on that, and I'll go in there and hunt it, because I feel like you said, no one's going to hunt that at all, especially down here. So
Yep.
anywhere, Missouri, Kansas, all kinds of places, I look for that. Even when I was in like Indiana, I looked for kind of marsh type, uh, wet areas around lakes and stuff.
Real quick, we have a question here from Matthew Wichner. Rendell, on average, how long does it take you to get back to your preferred hunt? And have you ever hunted close to the road? Somewhat, anyways.
Yeah, so the average length of time it takes me to get is dependent on what I'm hunting. Small properties, even small properties, they can be really long. Like, a lot of Iowa stuff is super deep. Like, you'll have to go through the ag fields to get to the woodlot in the very back, and you can end up going a long way to get there. And by the time you circle and loop in and you're going slow and taking your time, it could take me a couple hours sometimes to get into places if you're methodical about it. And other times I hunt right by the road. Like, I mean, I can watch the road. People could probably see me in the tree, and I'm there in 10 minutes. Like, and I've actually noticed the last couple of years, most of the deer I've been finding are literally right by the road. Like, you could just walk right in and hunt right next to the road. And that's where most of my deer are at now, because I feel like everyone started going deep. There's so many people going deep when they don't need to. They kind of like push all the deer out. And then you'll have a phase where everybody's hunting by the road, and it'll push all the deer all the way back. Like, that one buck was living way back in no man's land. So it just depends on the situation for length of time. But I hunt by the roads all the time. I mean, because I look for small overlooked stuff, and I think guys will just go right by it. If it's right by the road, ain't nobody hunting that.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I use it a lot. I mean, even bigger properties that get a lot of pressure, I'll just hunt right by the road. And I'll use like an e-bike too. I'll park in the main parking lot and ride an e-bike around. And I just use the e-bike on the road, and I'll just ditch it right by the road, and I'll go in and hunt like on the fringes of the roads and stuff. And two, if a property has bedding but no food, you can use that in your advantage, because they got to leave the bedding at some point to go to food. Kind of like that first buck with my buddy, they were leaving that property and crossing the road, and we were literally hunting by the road on that number 5 buck, and that number 2 buck, that 2025 buck, he wasn't very deep in the woods either. He was pretty close to the road, honestly. So it just depends. And that the tethered 10 buck was close to the road too. Like you could be on the road and you could see me in the tree. Like, so I actually do that quite a bit because Iowa, it just depends on where you're at, if it's broken up or not. Like some of the bigger, like huge reservoirs, you can get crazy deep in there. Some of the bigger state forest stuff, you can get really, really deep. My buddy came up and hunted with me uh, late season muzzleloader this year. I mean, he borrowed my muzzleloader and we went out there and I filmed for him and he shot a doe and we're a mile and a half deep on a big state forest and he shot that doe and we drug that thing a mile and a half out. So
That's a long drag for a doe.
Oh yeah, and we didn't really have anything. We used a tether, the tree tether, to drag it with the manpower, and it dropped in a huge ravine. Of course, like the biggest ravine it could have ran down into. I mean, it nosedived off into that thing. So I'm like, of course, I made him do most of the dragging though.
Yeah. Dan, what was your worst drag job ever?
My worst drag job? I don't know. There's been a few doozies.
Not ones where you lost your phone or anything like that, but just
my first really big buck was a long drag. I probably could have dragged it a lot less, but I didn't want anybody to see it, so I just dragged it all the way back. But there was one a few years back, probably about 10 years ago, that I shot in a conservancy that was 2 miles from the truck, and the only legal way to get it out was to drag it back to the truck. And that I was hunting with somebody else. We went all the way back to the truck, dropped all of our equipment, met a couple people to help us, went back, got the deer, and it was such dense swamp the whole 2 miles, and we had to cross a creek and stuff, and dragging it out in the dark, we got lost a little bit. By the time we got it in the truck, it was the sun was coming up from an evening hunt. That was a long drag.
Yeah.
It was nice having help, though. I mean, I don't know how you'd get that out without help.
Right.
Even if you, like, people always say, well, you quarter them up. Well, you want to walk 2 miles to get a hind quarter, or back 2 miles to get a hind quarter. But in Wisconsin, you have to take every part of the deer except for the entrails out.
Right.
So, I mean, we put it in a sled, we dragged, and it wasn't that bad of a drag, but it wasn't, going through that swamp and stuff. It was all night. The sun was coming up, just starting to come up when we got out.
Was it a big buck?
It was a nice one. It wasn't a monster. It
wasn't a doe.
Yeah, I when I was younger, I shot does way back.
Yeah,
I shot them wherever I got the opportunity.
Pick and choose a little bit.
Readily available, and I don't care as much about the does anymore. And but I still to this day won't not hunt the place or something. I hunt a deer a buck wherever he gives me the opportunity, and never worry about the drag out until it's dead. And if you start worrying about how you're going to drag a deer out of here when you're picking a spot to hunt, you might as well just hang your hat up. If you want to kill them where they're at.
I hear a lot of guys tell me that, oh, I'm not going to hunt here because I don't want to drag the deer. I'm like, I don't even care. I'm not even thinking that far ahead. I'm worried about killing the deer first, and then I'll worry about getting him out. I don't care where he is. I'll hunt a buck anywhere. Like if I got to hunt a buck in a Walmart parking lot, like I'm going to be hanging on a like I don't care.
There's been plenty of times when I said, oh my God, how the hell are we going to get this thing out of here? But I didn't think about them all shooting it.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't think about that until I'm like, man, I'm gonna be hurting when I get out of here tonight or tomorrow morning.
Yeah, it's an thought.
But
I see
a guy. I bet you're smiling when you get it out. I can see the smile on your face in every one of these pictures.
Oh yeah, that's the only time I smile. I usually have the grandpa face. I'm not a grandpa yet, but I got that. the grumpy,
Yep.
mean
You
one.
were around at all the shows selling osteo gear, and you always look like you're going to kill somebody. I'm like, does anybody buy anything from that guy? 8 foot tall. He looks like a serial killer.
Yeah,
Says the
I'm
big buck serial killer.
yeah, I'm nice as pie. I just got the grumpy face, I guess.
Yeah.
I did see a question. Some guy asked the average weight.
I don't
Where are
know.
we
We
at?
missed that one.
These two bucks right behind me that were on the list. They were three
And
over 300 pounds.
point to him again. Which
These two right here,
one? Right
the
above your
marsh,
head, and then
the marsh buck, and then that 10 buck were over 300, and the Rut Madness buck, he was like, I don't know, 280 something probably.
wow.
So over 250 easy, like average weight, like on a mature buck in Iowa. I mean, there's some huge bucks I've seen on camera, or people even kill like, like 330 or something. I mean, it's just insane body size bucks up here.
Yeah. Once they get to that 6 or 7 year old range, they really get heavy.
Yeah, I got a buck on camera. Man, he had to have been like 330. I call him the horse buck. I never ended up killing him, but the thing is massive. I got him on video on trail camera. The neck on that thing's the biggest neck I've ever seen on a buck. I mean, it's absolutely insane. So
Wow.
long drags when they weigh that much. Like field dressing them doesn't really do much for you.
All right, Dan, you got anything else for Rendell tonight?
No, I think it was great having him on the show. I think a lot of tactics in this. Rendell hunts a lot like we do, and a lot like our listeners do.
Yeah,
I agree.
for sure. I appreciate you guys having me on.
We appreciate you taking the time out of your evening here to spend it with all of us here tonight. So thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem. It's asked me 10 years ago if I'd be on here talking to Dan Infalt. I would have swear it never happened, but here I am. So, and then I appreciate you, Dan, all the tactics and wisdom you share, and you go out of your way to help people, and you're always gracious on the videos and stuff. So I really appreciate all you do for the hunting community.
Thanks, appreciate it.
All right, Rendell, if you want to stick around here while we close out, we'll chat with you a little bit real quick after the show. So,
Sounds good.
well, Dan, what do you think? That was another great top five, I feel.
Yeah, I think Rendell was good about really getting into the tactical end of things too.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of stuff to take away here. So many different parallels, I feel like, from the things that you teach. And clearly, he's picked up on some of that, but also kind of found his own way as well. And that's kind of what it's all about. Like, you're always talking about, like, the way you do things, but you don't say, don't do it exactly the way I do it. Find your own way. Right?
Right, exactly. I think people should look at what I do, look at what Rendell does, or what other people do, and take what they can use, but also the stuff that they're good at. I mean, some stuff might work for me or work for Rendell because we've worked in that direction and kind of mastered it. Maybe it's not for that person. You know what I mean? But you take it all in and use what you can.
I agree 100%. Great guest, great information, awesome stories. So we will continue with some more of these top fives, maybe not next week, but in the future. We got a lot of great content coming up. Again, folks, if you are interested in getting a chance to go out on one of these workshops here, there's a few spots available yet. We might have already gotten some messages here tonight, but next weekend, not this upcoming Valentine's weekend, that's why Dan kind of skipped over. We did last weekend, and then we're going to do the weekend of the 21st and the 22nd. Reach out to Dan, whether it be on the forum or a direct message, and get yourself signed up. They're a lot of fun, and we had a lot of interesting conversations. It's just it's a neat thing every day. Like from Saturday to Sunday last weekend, having roughly about the same amount of guys each day. The questions were different, and the experience, I think, was a little bit different for each group, but fantastic information to be shared for sure. You got anything else on that?
Yeah, it's a great time. Saturday is almost completely full. I got like a couple spots.
Okay, that's good.
Sunday is wide open, which might be good for people that are interested in Sunday because the smaller groups, it gets a little more personal.
Yeah, I agree. So if you guys are interested, again, reach out to Dan. Otherwise, we'll talk to you guys next week, Tuesday, before that happens. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon, Dan.